Hello, I'm Corey Camori.
And I'm John Conway.
And welcome to Don't Hassle Me, I'm Local, street level music discussion.
On this podcast, we're going to dive into the deep, dark, and sometimes evil world of music from the perspective of fans, critics, and snobby metal nerds that sometimes write music.
That's right. And on today's episode, we will be discussing these various topics. Number one, we will be discussing, is Good Tiger a sufficient replacement for the prog outfit Safety Fire?
We'll also be talking about why Opeth is considered to be the greatest band of all time.
We will also be discussing, has hard rock become the new hair metal?
And we'll get into a little bit of current events. In the news today, Corey Taylor, what do you have to say about the comments against him by Deicide's frontman?
Which I cannot remember his name right now, but that's okay because we have a computer and we're going to look it up. And then our final segment of the show today will be our subgenre guessing game known as NAM That Subgenre. So, let's jump straight into this.
Let's do it.
All right, let's get into the nitty and gritty here. Is Good Tiger a sufficient replacement for Safety Fire? John, I'll let you take it away.
And you know what? I'm really kind of upset that Neil isn't here for this one because I think that he could just end this in one short two-letter word.
He could absolutely do that, especially be like, I think the only thing he would have to say is mastering. Mastering and mixing.
But I think it gets a little more complicated. So I would say no right off the bat. I think that after listening to the Safety Fire, their two albums, and Good Tiger's first effort they put out, it's fun to listen to, but I don't think it's anywhere as good as the Safety Fire.
I would agree with that. It's funny because listening to Good Tiger, initially I really liked it, and I at first I thought I liked it even more than Safety Fire because I tend to like music that has more of like a poppy vibe to it. However, the more and more I listen to it, and especially after I listened to it from a live perspective, I really just kind of lost all interest because they were not able to replicate what they do on the album live, and then it kind of showed me that the album itself was kind of, very mechanized in that they used a lot of auto-tune and Pro Tools and stuff like that. So I would say right there that no, they are not a sufficient replacement for Safety Fire. But, it's kind of hard to become a replacement for Safety Fire. I mean, just listen to the shit Safety Fire's put out.
Exactly. That's what I was going to talk about, like what makes Safety Fire so good. And I think when you look at, their first, the first full length that came out was Grind the Ocean. And, that's got, I think that they were touring with, they got like Protest a Hero on their resume. And then when Mouth of Swords came out, they were touring with BT Bam. I mean, just kind of looking at the bands that they're surrounding themselves with or that they did surround themselves with just shows how good they are. And it all goes down to, I just think they're overall a what did you call them, a prog?
Yeah, they're a better prog outfit than
right.
Good Tiger is. Good Tiger has those pop sensibilities.
Yeah, and I think it just goes, Safety Fire has all of the check marks, from the vocals. Like, I think for me is all about like dynamics. So you can have a heavy band, but I get tired of listening to just heavy riffs, heavy screaming, heavy drums, all that. So like, while I still like heavy aspects of it, I guess that's why why I actually like progressive metal. Is it's got to have that tension, which is a heavy stuff, and it's got to have that release. And I feel like Safety Fire just has that. The vocalist, he can scream his head off, and then he can turn around and do some really, really beautiful, clean vocals. The guitars, I think they complement each other very well.
I would agree, yeah.
Heavy. They can shred, but then they can dial it down, and they got that clean aspect as well. The bass and the drums. They've got a solid rhythm section. And then Good Tiger, if you look at the band, the guitars are the exact same. Joe and Dez from the Safety Fire make up Good Tiger. So you would think that it would translate, pretty well. And I think there's some parts that it does, but I feel like Elliot Coleman, the vocalist for Good Tiger, he's what stands out.
Yeah, he's the deciding factor, especially for me. And I don't know if it's just because I'm a vocalist too, but it feels like to me that's where Good Tiger starts to lose its steam and lose the kind of ground that Safety Fire had on that particular sound. Because if you listen to the bands, at times they do have very similar sounds, and that's probably because they are the two guitarists from Safety Fire. It's the same guitarists from Safety Fire that are in Good Tiger. However, again, that the difference in vocals, it really makes or breaks that band. And again, I think that's what lost me, honestly, was the fact that, comparing these bands sonically on their albums and then comparing these bands sonically live, Safety Fire is just vastly superior. They just do so many different things vocally on there. And, I love the music of Good Tiger, but those vocals just really turn me off. And, Elliot's a great singer. I really think
awesome singer.
I think he could be a fantastic singer, especially live, but some of the stuff he's doing on the album, he's just pushing it too far like a lot of vocalists do nowadays, who are never going to be able to replicate that stuff live. And I have a serious issue with that.
And I've got a big offender of that, Mastodon.
Oh, yeah.
One of my favorite bands. And when I saw them 3 times on that Crack the Sky tour, and they kind of, after that third show, they kind of had their shit together. But I mean, God, if you can't replicate it on live what you do on the album, I just don't see why bands do it.
Luckily, I saw them on the Hunter tour, so they had their shit together at that point, but they kind of lost it when they put out Once More on the Sun.
They just said, Brian, why don't you just sing? But then even what he does is he takes his range and then pushes it even higher.
Right.
And, God, listen to that, like Jimmy Fallon.
Yeah.
Or Jimmy Kim, one of the...
Or it was one of those talks.
They did the Motherload.
I think it was Conan or something like that.
Yeah, he always has masks on. They did the Motherload, and it was just, oh my God. But anyways, back to Safety Fire, Good Tiger, just to kind of wrap this up a little bit. Look at the length of the album. I think that we can definitely get something out of that. So Mouth of Swords, I'm looking in, clocks in 46 minutes and 40 seconds. And I feel like that's a really good length for an album, because once you hit track 1 of Mouth of Swords to all the way you get the end of Old Souls, it's kind of like, oh, all right, Old Souls is up, which is my favorite song on that album, and it feels like it should be done. Like, you get done with it, and it doesn't really feel like there needs to be anything more. But the Head Full of Moonlight clocks in at like 35 minutes. I mean, just barely over, a full length. And those songs are averaging 3.5 minutes. And with that being said, they follow the verse, chorus.
Yeah.
And then it's over. They don't even leave room for a bridge. They don't even leave room. Most of the songs don't even have a guitar solo that these two guys have clearly shown that they can do. It's just, I mean, they could all be radio singles, and that's fine.
They really could. And yeah, there is nothing wrong with that. And another thing that I would touch upon is, anytime I listen to Mouth of Swords, that's an album that I really like to listen to all the way through. There's not really a bad song on that album. There's like a couple that are kind of like, they're not as good as, like Beware the Leopard or, the title track or even Red Hatchet for that matter. But
Old Souls, best one.
It is a badass song. But the thing I've also noticed about Good Tiger's album is it really feels like it peaks after that 4th song, which I can't remember right now for the life of me what that 4th one is, but it's like, why do I bleed all these bottles dry?
I think that's the 3rd track.
Is that the 3rd track?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. See, okay, well then it peaks at the 3rd track then for me.
So I think, Corey, what you're trying to say is it's front-loaded.
It is very front-loaded. It doesn't hold your attention, and maybe it's the simplistic nature of it.
Finally, we disagree. Because while I do think that it's front-loaded, I think it's actually got a really good balance. I think that the weakest part of that album, so Corey's talking about the Enjoy the Rain track.
Yeah.
I think even All Her Own Teeth, which is track 4, is good. I think where it really lacks is right in the middle. I Paint What I See and Aspirations, because honestly, I had this album on my Spotify playlist. One of my really good friends, Brian Baker, I didn't even know that Good Tiger was the same guitarist as Safety Fire. I had just recently been listening to Safety Fire. I didn't even really know that they had broken up. And he told me it's basically Safety Fire with a new vocalist. So I listened to it, and I didn't really like it the first time around. But I had it in my prog playlist, and every now and then a track would come up. And the one that came up the most was, I think it was track 6, The Latchkey Kids. I think that's how you say it, Latchkey.
Yeah, it looks right.
And that's the one where it has a guy exhaling at the beginning, and it has the guitar harmonics.
That's the really slow, almost ballad-like song, right?
It's very ballad, but it's actually like the full band, not to be confused with the which one is it? Yeah, the Understanding Silence. Yeah, that one that I sang that one time.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is the peak, the pinnacle of the album. So to hit it at track 6, I feel like is probably a pretty good spot. And so while I see what you're saying that it might be a little front loaded, some of my favorite tracks are actually on the tail end of that album. So
well, that's fine. I honestly don't. Those songs I didn't feel were bad. I just didn't get the same kind of impact that I got with those first 3 tracks. I mean, Where Are the Birds and Snake Oil, especially, they just have a really nice moving. They just have really great momentum throughout those songs. Especially, I love what Elliot's doing vocally on Where Are the Birds. He's got this weird kind of staccato kind of vibe to the way he's delivering his vocals and following that rhythm section.
Yeah,
but
it's really got a Latin kind of feel.
Yeah,
to it.
It's really got a nice Latin vibe to it, and I really liked that, and that really kept my attention. But I don't know, it just kind of dropped off for me. But I think for the most part we're in agreement that Safety Fire is a vastly superior band compared to Good Tiger. But I'm interested to see what Good Tiger does moving forward, especially if Elliot dials it back vocally.
Yeah, I think a sophomore effort is definitely going to show what they can do, because this was I feel like they put it together pretty quick, because they had a successful Indiegogo campaign and they recorded it in just in no time, and put out this quick album. So who knows? This could have been something that they came up with on the spot to fulfill an Indiegogo campaign. This could have been something that could have been leftover riffs from Safety Fire. Who knows? So I guess looking ahead, like I said, their sophomore album will definitely, I'll definitely check it out.
Yeah, they have a bright future ahead of them, I think. And I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I mean, I think they're going on tour pretty soon here.
They are. They're going to be in Chapel Hill.
Yep,
on Thursday. So yeah, we're going to do that
Thursday. All right, so I guess with that wrapped up, let's move on to our next topic, which would be why Opeth is considered to be one of the greatest bands of all time. And I'll let you start it off again, Mr. Conway, since you are the Opeth aficionado over here.
Yeah, I was just going to say that this, I was trying to come up with a topic that didn't sound exactly biased, but I guess
it's kind of difficult
when you're throwing around the GOAT, greatest of all time.
This is the internet, though, so we do throw that out there quite a bit.
Yeah, I really wanted to talk about, they're my favorite band, and I think that they have the resume to back it up.
Well, it's relevant to talk about them right now, too, since they just released their single off of their new album, Sorceress.
Yep.
Which has, in my opinion, brought them back in a big way.
A huge way. Every internet blog, everybody that's talking about it is just obsessed with this song. And for good reason. I mean, it's awesome. It's finally when I think of Opeth, the thing that has always been consistent with them, what I've always liked about them is how dark they can be.
Absolutely.
At the same time, again, going back to why I like, bands that have dynamics, they pedal it back, but it's always, they've got a minor feel. When they started experimenting, doing some, I think in Watershed, they were doing throwing some major chords in there, it sounded a little weird. And even in Pale Communion, I call it the, it's like the Crosby, Stills and Nash or the Allman Brothers song, the River is is ridiculous.
I mean, they still had a couple of tracks too on Heritage, it was Heritage that were starting to show that too, and that's I think they were able to capture more of that darkness on Pale Communion than Heritage for me.
Yeah.
Heritage is where it was just like, okay, whoa, this is too much.
I don't even know if we're ready to get into Heritage yet.
but that being said, I mean, I don't really feel like Heritage is enough of a blemish to kind of, take away the gravity of saying that they are one of the best bands in the fucking world.
I don't think so. I don't think it was Saint Anger
or
a Lulu
absolutely
or
not.
what's the what is Risk. Megadeth.
Oh, wait a minute. If you're going to mention Risk, then you also have to mention, what's the newest one they did? The fucking, god damn it. What's that one? Not the one they
Super Collider.
Super Collider, thank you. I was going to say Dystopia, but that was the one they just did. Super Collider.
That was actually pretty good.
Fucking holy shit. Oh my god.
I think the more, like, Heritage, I feel like that we mortals are just not meant to understand it. It's just, Michael has just created something. And he said, he was like, you know what? I think they might be ready for this. I'm about to give them the real shit. Boom. And everybody said,
what the fuck?
No, I don't really like this. And so he's like, all right, I'll ease y'all motherfuckers into this. Here's Pale Communion. And everybody's pretty happy. And then now he's dropping the hammer with this new track, Sorceress, that I'm just so stoked to hear the rest of the album. And I've got to say, Corey, I don't know if you've been keeping up with the webisodes, but they are pretty lame.
I watched the first one. I haven't watched the second one yet. And the only reason why I didn't jump to watch the second one was because I heard how lackluster it was from you.
Yeah.
That first one was okay, but...
The first one was okay, but the second two are just them talking about the album. Like,
well, the first one
I feel like
was
they're trying to keep it... I feel like they're going to do a good job of it not leaking. Even though I feel like the Sorcerer's track leaked and then they jumped ahead of it and put out the lyric video.
Yeah.
But they're not showing any... If you watch those webisodes, all of the new music is the Sorcerer's track, the title track. They're not... And they're not showing any type of recording. They're not playing any new riffs, which of course when I want to watch them making the album, I want to see them playing the new stuff. I want to hear 30 seconds of that new song, and they're just not giving you any of that.
Well, so. You know what? See, this almost kind of goes into like movie trailer type of, the same type of territory as like a movie trailer, for instance. It's like, for me personally, I would rather have that mystique built up, and I would rather not know a whole lot jumping into an album and kind of go in with a fresh, a clean slate, essentially, and kind of go in there with fresh ears and just experience it for the first time, throwing it into my CD player or throwing it on, record player. I like that, and I like to then go back after I've listened to an album and watch it behind the scenes on how they made it. So I get what they're doing. I almost wish they wouldn't have done it at all and just been like, okay, we're just gonna, we'll just drop this shit.
Maybe, I don't know. I really like behind the scenes and the making of stuff, but I think I see what you're saying, and hopefully this is just like not their official behind the scenes. Like if they're going to release a making of, like I just hope to God that this is not it, and I hope that they actually go in and you get to watch them record the parts, because I
have a feeling that's what it's going to be like.
I hope so.
Because like if you watch those clips, they're what, like 8 minutes long?
No, they're like 3.5.
Oh, really?
4 minutes, yeah. They're
okay.
Pretty short.
So
they're literally just like interviews.
So they're probably, what those probably are, just like the introductory segments of the various sessions of them recording.
I hope you're right.
So I guess we'll have to wait and see. They've put out pretty extensive behind the scenes things for their other albums, so I would assume they're going to do that with this one. But but as far as going into like why they're one of the greatest bands, just look at their back catalog. They have such a diverse back catalog. If you listen to something like you're gonna have to help me jog my memory with their debut album, Orchid. You listen to Orchid, and you even listen to like the progression from Orchid to My Arms, Your Hers.
Right.
Like there's just this sense of growth and progression that really shows true artistry.
You can group them, and there's a way that I've got them, at least in my mind, that I group all their albums together. All right, so you've got Orchid and Morning Rise go together. Okay. They're like one album basically. Some people before this is okay. So I started listening to Opeth right after like Damnation came out. Ghost Reveries was my first new Opeth album, and I've obviously got all the new ones that they've released ever since. But back then, they were a lot of the diehard Opeth fans were saying that Morning Rise is their best record, and even I know you'll watch some interviews with Michael, and he'll still say that. I always liked Orchid. I love those two albums. So, anyways, we'll group them real quick. So you got Orchid and Morning Rise, which are like their death black metal. People almost would call them black metal because the lyrics, the imagery, the poetry, the bleak writing that they've done. You know, it really they talk about black metal originating out of the harsh Scandinavian. Woods and the snow and the scenery, and that really captures that. Then you've got their big jump, their Opeth jump, where they kind of grab their identity, which is from Morning Rise to My Arms Your Hearse.
Right.
And from that album, I always kind of put My Arms Your Hearse, Still Life, and then Blackwater Park are kind of
that's
the
like
core. Those
the
are
core
like
Opeth sound.
Right. If you want to know what Opeth, like the Opeth that most people think of, those are your three. And it ends with that Blackwater Park, which obviously is like their most commercially successful one. Like that's whatever you talk to anybody, oh, Blackwater Park, you know, and it's awesome. Then you've got Deliverance and Damnation, which were, you know, supposed to be released together. Then you've got the next shift,
the dark horse,
which I think
is
you got Ghost Reveries, which I think is a perfect. It's not even. I didn't know it was going to be a transition album, but now looking back at it, it totally was. So I feel like Ghost Reveries is kind of like the My Arms Your Hearse was.
Well, it's funny because I think Watershed is more of their transition album because of that.
It is, but I think Watershed is more on the heritage side. I feel like Ghost Reveries is the beginning of the shift. Sorry.
Okay, that's fine.
Then Watershed is definitely that bridge, and then you've got Heritage Pale Communion, and I'm assuming the Sorceress one will kind of go with the three that I'm assuming this one's going to continue to not have any screams, so these are going to be naturally, I think, grouped together just based on that.
Either that, or it might be one of those things where this is going to be the next transitional period where they're going to then transition into the next thing, the next phase of what they're going to be. Yep. And I think that right there is reason enough to showcase why they are one of the greatest bands playing.
So, sorry.
No, you're good. I don't know. Again, for me, I love bands that will go and say, you know what, we want to push the boundaries and we want to continue to challenge ourselves and our audiences. And they're a band that consistently does that with every album that they release, in my opinion. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Heritage and even Pale Communion. I like a lot of songs on there, but it's not my favorite album of theirs. But I still really respect them, and I feel like they were doing something different. And I appreciate it immensely because it makes me feel like, as a listener, they're not trying to dumb shit down for me and be like, oh, well, we're just going to keep doing the same thing over and over again, which there are plenty of bands that do that, and they're perfectly fine to do that. You know, I could name plenty of bands right now that just make album after album that are the same. Disturbed. Sorry. Slayer. Anyway, but that's one of the things that I feel classifies them in my mind as one of the greatest bands playing right now or just one of the greatest bands of all time, period, because they are constantly pushing forward, and they're not afraid to change things up, and they're not afraid to, rock the boat a little bit. And,
right.
A lot of people bitch and moan about, oh, well, Michael's not doing all these fucking harsh vocals anymore. I think that's fucking great, because it shows the diversity. Like you were saying, Ghost Reveries for you is a transitional album, and I would agree to a certain degree that, yes, that is... where you start. Yeah, I know. I just rhymed there. Dr. Seussen. I would agree that is where you do start seeing the transition, and then Watershed.
It's definitely
100%.
Watershed. I feel like looking back, Ghost Reveries is where it planted the seed.
Right.
I still think
it's like the inception moment.
But you didn't know it until now, going back and looking at it.
And then Watershed is the one where you really start seeing it.
Right.
But the thing that I personally love about an album like Watershed is you can show somebody for instance, my mom or my girlfriend would never really go and listen to a band like Opeth, like their older stuff, like a death metal album. They'd be like, oh, that's just fucking death metal. That's just screaming, blah, blah, blah. Well, then when you show them an album like that, you'd be like, oh, whoa, this is like a completely different direction here. Like they have those heavy elements, or what you were saying, those dark elements, but then they're injecting all these different vibes into it, all these different emotions and feelings into these different, songs on these albums. And you show that these guys are more versatile than we're just a metal band. These guys are not just a metal band. there's some of the best musicians playing music right now. And I feel like that's why those albums can't be overlooked, especially, Heritage and Pale Communion. It showcases their versatility as musicians, which, if you're going to be labeled as one of the greatest bands ever, you have to have versatility in order to really plant your fucking flag down and say, we're one of the best fucking bands in the world.
Well, so, all right, so obviously, I'll be playing devil's advocate here. Are they the greatest band of all time, greatest metal band of all time, whatever you want to say, because they are evolving, because they're getting, they're changing their sound? Or would you say that a band, in order to be the greatest of all time, they do one thing and they do it so well and they can keep doing it as long as they're a band? For instance, like Slayer. Like, when you buy a Slayer album, you know exactly what you're gonna get. Right? So does that consistency make them great, that they've stayed around this long by branding their own style of music and they're still successful?
I don't think so.
Or is the reason why Opeth is so great is because they're evolving, they're pissing off a lot of their fans, they're gaining new fans? Does that make them good? Some people would call that, what's the word, selling out, perhaps, now that he's not growling or anything like that, it is more accessible. Because you're right, I could put on Pale Communion in a car trip and not skip a song. Usually when I had to play Opeth songs for people, I'd be like, all right, I want to play this song, but I only get to play him a minute section, because then it's gonna growl. I had a funny story. This is a true story, by the way. When I was in college, I as college guys would do, I brought my acoustic guitar, down to the outside by the entrance of our dorm,
picking up the ladies,
and I would play by playing nerd progressive metal. Right. So I remember playing off the Morning Rise track, The Night in the Silent Water. And it's got this just awesome part towards the end of the song where it just, everything drops out, and then it's just got an acoustic guitar strumming between, it's almost like a very drone kind of part. Like it's just playing this an E minor chord. And then all of a sudden, like the band comes in and it does this minor progression up and down the scale. And I played that, and I remember this girl, but for the record, not what I was trying to impress. Definitely not.
We're not shaming anyone on this podcast, but disclaimer, he was not down with it.
She asked me she was actually like kind of like a friend too, so
yeah,
not a big deal. But she's like, what was that? And I was like, oh, that's Opeth, The Night in Silent Water. And believe it or not, she remembered. And she went and typed it into iTunes and listened, and then came back to me and was like mad at me and like, that was not the song that you were playing. What was that? And I was like, yeah, it was. And she's like, I listened to the preview on iTunes, and I was like, no, you're not going to hear that part probably. So, true story of how you have to pick and choose when to listen to Opeth. But now apparently you don't, or maybe now you will. I don't know, way that the source.
It's funny that you say that it's more accessible, and I know I just said it's more accessible, and it is accessible, but at the same time it's like accessible, but then at other times it's not accessible, because they have a really strange, almost 70s prog vibe going on right now. And there aren't a whole lot of people out there that listen to that shit. I mean, as far as comparing, pop listeners to 70s prog listeners, it's like, apples and oranges as far as how many or the difference in like the type of people who listen to it and everything. So
I feel like this is Michael getting his he's got this huge chub for 70s prog, and he's finally put this has been his master plan all along.
Yes.
He's cracking his knuckles.
Yes.
He's like, all right, I'm about to put out some death metal albums and then slowly transition, put out some really great stuff, and then bam, I'm going to finally, 25 years later, I get to finally hit him with what I've always wanted to do, and that is 70s prog. Bam.
Maybe.
It's a master plan, dude.
Going back to what you were saying as far as, does efficiency and making it so that you're able to maintain whatever sound you had in the past, like a band, for instance, like Slayer, and how a lot of their albums sound the same, does that does that qualify you for being one of the best bands in the world? For me personally, no. And it might change depending upon who you talk to, but for me personally, no. I feel like what that showcases is it showcases consistency, but it almost has a mechanized nature about it, to where it's almost like you're a fucking machine. You're just putting shit out over and over and over again.
They've branded it.
And they've branded it, and
it's like
it takes away the human element.
So here we go.
Whereas Opeth, whenever they release a new album, and they're changing things up, they're turning their audiences into listeners of prog or listeners into whatever kind of like elements they're adding. That right there showcases a human element of we're growing together, we're experiencing these different things together through this music. And there aren't that many bands that go out there and make it so that their listeners are taken on a journey with them. And I feel like that, like, because look, if you go back and listen to a band like Pink Floyd, for instance, whenever you listen to a Pink Floyd album, it's a journey you're going on. And you might even become better at the end of listening to that album because you went on that journey with them. And that is what separates, some of the really great bands or bands that are able to do things consistently from the truly great bands that transcend genres and just are able to push people artistically.
So here I just thought of an analogy of some sort. So talking about branding and consistency. So you could take Slayer or Megadeth and let's call them a corporate fast food chain, right?
Okay.
We'll call them Chick-fil-A. No, just kidding.
I was going to say, if Dave Mustaine were anything, he would be Chick-fil-A.
That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to say they could be any corporate restaurant, any corporate fast food restaurant. If you go to a McDonald's here in Charlotte, North Carolina, and order a Big Mac, and then you go to France and order a McDonald's, go to McDonald's and order a Big Mac, it's probably going to be close to the same thing. Right. All right. And some people might think that that's good. Some people might think that that's success. That's awesome. But then you've got these, we'll say, oh God, I don't even know, like a chef that is constantly creating a new menu item.
Yeah.
One of these like really high class, or maybe not even high class, just one of these new age restaurants where they're constantly revamping their menu, constantly doing this and that. That's going to be more of like the Opeth, more of like you're not really sure what you're going to get. It's going to be good. Some people might have liked the old menu and now they're coming up and then now it's something new.
Right.
So it's all about, I think, like, what do you want? Do you want consistency or do you want the experience, like you were saying?
But then that's also like also saying though that monetary success is, you're able to hold up monetary success to, greatness, artistic greatness. And what we're saying is that they are one of the greatest bands out there, not because we're not saying they're one of the most successful bands out there.
No, I'm not even talking about monetary or success. I'm just saying about the consistency. They don't even have money involved. They could each be making the same amount or one. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about you open up Rain and Blood, and then you listen to it, and then you go and you listen to Repentless. Did I make that word up?
No, that's the name of the album.
It's a joke. Because they made that up. It's going to be a lot of elements of the same thing. You're going to have that. That's all I'm talking about. Comparing that to if you go to I don't even know what the hell to call it.
All
a chef.
Fans are going to hate us right now.
Right. Somebody that is constantly reinventing their menu, trying to get better and improve and using different ingredients, coming up with different stuff. Not even talking about success of it. I'm talking about the fact of what you're getting and what your expectations are. And then when those expectations are met, how do you respond to it? So I feel like a Slayer fan, their expectations are met when they get Repentless. They're not expecting fucking 7-8 time signatures with they want to hear 180 BPMs plus and a Kerry King fucking shred fest with a whammy bar solo and Tom Araya screaming about how God sucks. Whereas they're not expecting some sort of like jazz breakdown. That's going to turn them off. So just like when somebody goes to McDonald's, I feel like they're not expecting to get a filet mignon. Maybe, and they get the McRib, and then they're super pissed off. I don't know.
Well, I don't know. I mean, again, I think it goes back to, it also might just be personal preference. Some people might find that, Slayer is one of the greatest bands of all time. And, for their particular genre or for the metal genre and what they've contributed to it, I would throw Slayer in as a very influential band that has done some amazing work. I mean, Seasons of the Abyss is a fantastic album, so is Rain and Blood. Now, do I necessarily think that any of the other Slayer albums after that are as good as fucking Blackwater Park, My Arms, Your Hearse, Still Life, Damnation? I fucking love Damnation.
Love Damnation.
Watershed, Ghost Forever. You know, that's the thing, is it's funny because there's a consistency with the quality of the stuff Opeth puts out, yet it's also changing things up and pushing things forward. So you are getting that consistency that you're talking about there, because when you listen to an Opeth album, you know that it's Opeth. Like, you hear the basic idea of what Opeth is or what they've become, but they're taking that formula and they're pushing it forward or pushing it in this direction or that direction.
But I feel like that kind of expectation of consistency is almost like I'm trusting in Michael and his songwriting ability, or the ingredients to go into the song. I know that's going to be there.
I feel like I'm the one now arguing more about Opeth is the greatest band in the world, and you're like, no, wait a minute, but is consistency good?
No, I'm just, again, I don't know. I'm just
devil's advocate?
Sort of. Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out, you got to turn some
Well,
shit
again, those are my reasons as to why I think they're the greatest, one of the greatest bands. I mean, what are your reasons?
I definitely agree with you. I think that aside, I mean, it all goes down to personal preference. I love them because I can't explain it. I think that's why they're my favorite band, and why I can't seem to really take them out of my rotation is I honestly don't know. They do something, they scratch that itch, they tickle my fancy, I don't know, whatever cliche you want to come to. They're just it for me. They, all the way back through Orchid, all the way through, there's something in every song that, except there's only there might only be one track, I'm not too crazy about Heritage, but the Pain I See in Others on Deliverance, the last track, might be the only one that really doesn't take me anywhere. But I don't know, man. And that's why I'm kind of asking. I'm wondering, is it because they evolve? Is it the consistency of their songwriting?
Well, also,
for me, they're just it, and that's something I like it because I can't explain, I guess, exactly why I like them so much.
That I think also is another thing that kind of transcends. It's like ethereal. It just is another thing that only truly great bands have. But also, as musicians ourselves, and this is me personally, and I have a feeling it's the same with you, whenever I listen to an Opeth album, I'm like, fuck, now I got to get better. I've now got to go and push myself past my boundaries to become a better musician. And that's inspiring. And that right there, I feel, is a true sign of greatness, is that it makes me want to get up and write the best fucking lyrics I can write and sing the best vocals I can possibly sing.
Yeah.
And, I know that's the same with you with guitar.
I think that's a good way to put it. They inspire. Yeah, absolutely.
So I think we've talked that topic enough to death. I think we've talked that one up enough.
I could, yeah.
Which I'm sure we could do an entire show about Opeth, and I'm sure at some point we might actually do that, especially when our good old pal Neil Brewer is here to assist us with the recording of these episodes here. But so, are you ready to move on to our next topic here, Mr. Conway?
Absolutely.
All right, I'll let you start off what we're going to be talking about then.
All right, has hard rock become the new hair metal? What the heck does that mean?
I personally think yes, and I guess I can dive into what the context of that question is.
Because I wrote it, and and you seem to.
And I understand it.
You understand it, but I don't know if you really do.
Okay, well, for me, that question kind of the context of that question is. So a lot of people who listen to metal have, obviously, if you go back and listen to hair metal, or if you just watch metal documentaries, Headbanger's Journey is fucking awesome. You need to go watch that. If you haven't, it'll explain it perfectly. Going back and listening to hair metal back in the 80s? 80s was when it was huge, right?
Yeah, I believe that was it.
This was it was like early 80s all the way to like the early 90s, I believe, right?
I'm sure there's some scragglers.
Yeah. And the genre itself was I guess it's considered technically a subgenre, was one that had a lot of stagnation in it. There wasn't a whole lot of growth in it. Pretty much everybody who was a part of that scene or that sound sounded almost exactly the same didn't push anything forward, and became really contrived and became very just cookie cutter and I guess radio friendly if we want to get into that territory. And I guess the question of, has hard rock become that? I would say yeah. If you listen to a lot of bands that would be considered hard rock now, they all sound the same. The genre hasn't changed since the late 90s, mid 2000s on. Every band you listen to now sounds like they've been inspired by fucking Fuel or fucking Nickelback or Three Doors Down is another one. The sound itself has never evolved. It's never given anybody a reason to stick around and listen to it for as long as it's been around.
Yeah, I think they took. I think what they do is they take a cookie cutter kind of approach to it. They do like the glam rock had the you had to have the ballad. You had to have every song was a certain length, the verse chorus, bridge, solo, chorus. I feel like they kind of took that and they tapped into. Obviously there's an audience for it, and I think you brought up Fuel and Three Doors Down. Those are actually some kind of. I would not have, I don't think, thought of those kind of bands. I'm thinking more like Breaking Benjamin, Crossfade.
So those are more like the post-grunge bands, though. But even those guys, though,
what the fuck is post-grunge? Post-rock, hard.
I don't even. I consider that shit all to be hard rock. But the way when I say post-grunge, I think of those are the bands that happened after Nirvana and I guess technically Alice in Chains is still going on right now, but it was when they stopped making music.
Yeah.
It's when all those bands in the grunge era kind of stopped making that darker music, the music that kind of had more layers to it, and it became more commercialized. And I think it started with, you had bands like, what is the name? It's like Candle something.
Candlebox?
Candlebox, thank you.
Candlebox.
Candlebox, I feel like, was one of those first bands that really was the commercialized version of of grunge. And then slowly you started to see these bands pop up like the Three Doors Downs and the Nickelbacks and the...
Which they were new at the time.
They were new at the time, so they were pushing things forward. But now, we don't have anybody pushing things forward in that rock genre.
I don't think you can.
You might not be able to.
Dude, you turn on Octane...
Well, but then again, if you think about it, a band like Tool, for instance, came out in that post-grunge kind of era, and they were a band that they were able to push things further sonically and structurally back in like the early fucking 90s, more than the bands that exist nowadays that be considered to be hard rock have ever been able to do.
But but when you say, all right, so we'll jump ahead a little bit to our genre game. All right, so since you brought Tool into the mix, which is like a total fucking wrench in the system here, because I don't know. I don't know how we got it. All right, so what genre is Tool then?
Well, again, I would throw Tool under like a progressive rock.
Okay, so you would not say hard rock.
No. But again, they came up in that same exact time as those other bands and were thrown into the same mix.
Okay, but so they kind of went off the beaten path. All right, everybody else took what I guess Nickelback did, what the Seethers are doing, and now there's a hard rock to it. So those bands were not hard rock. Now it's hard. Now you're jumping into your Seether. You got when 3 Days Grace did that, I fucking hate everything about you. You've got
forget even that, the one
Breaking Benjamin
released recently that what is it, like I Am Machine, I think that
I have no idea.
It was like the last 3 Days Grace single that was out there on the radio. That sounds exactly like that very first album that they put out.
It's got some sort of, they've got it down. They've got Octane is playing it. You've got this audience of people that don't want to listen to country, rap, or pop, but they don't like screaming. So what I feel like these bands have done is they're following a formula, and it's apparently still working, because you go to any, and it's happening here in the local scene. You ask all these bands what genre they are.
They say hard rock.
Well, the first one that's come out of their mouths is gonna be, we're like a hard rock, and then whatever the fuck else they want to tag onto it. So they're gonna have elements of the same elements that
got your
everything has. You got your
time
intro.
signatures.
That's right, just for our good friend Neil. They got their intro. They've got, usually starts off with some sort of, like high guitar part, and then all of a sudden the whole band comes in, and then you've got your verse chorus. I mean, it goes back to that. And there's bands that are I'm going to do an air quotes, that are touring based on this formula, and it's the same shit. I can't even listen to it anymore. You put on Octane, that used to be a pretty decent station.
Well, you know what's interesting is what you just pointed out right there, in that it still is viewed as relatively successful. And this is something we can tie right back into with the hair metal thing. Hair metal, back in the 80s, was pretty much the pinnacle of like what metal was able to reach as far as monetary success is concerned. It was the most commercially successful form of metal at the time, and it was something that became very commercialized to the point where they were just pumping out bands that looked similar.
Right.
And then they had the same sound. So fast forward to the stuff to our Breaking Benjamins, to our Seethers, to our Three Doors Down's, 3 Days Graces. It's the same thing. What they've done is they've identified or set up essentially an algorithm for, this is how you do this shit, or it's an equation. This is how you do this shit. This is how you put it out there. This is the type of mixing and mastering you utilize. And then boom, this is how you're going to make money. It's a well-oiled machine. It's mechanized. It will then hopefully become successful. But at the end of the day, people can only listen to that shit for so long before they go, all right, I'm done, I'm tired. What is this shit?
Well, it's got to have, I think that if you're operating on that mentality, you've got to have your hit. And that's what makes it, like, yeah, you're following, if you listen to, and there's new bands that are coming out doing this. I know we keep talking about Breaking Benjamin and all this, but there are bands that are coming out of this great state of North Carolina that are putting this formula to work, and they've jumped in a van and they're going around. Are they making any money? I don't know. I don't see. I'm not looking at the checks that they're getting or what they're getting out of their merch sales. But if you listen to their album, I guarantee you it's a 10-track album, and I guarantee you
it's 25 to 30 minutes long.
None of their songs are over. No, it's probably maybe, but none of their songs are going to be over 4.5 minutes. They're not going to have any lengthy guitar solos. Nothing that we'd want to listen to. But I guess that gives them a chance that every single one of those songs could potentially get, be the one.
Well, the problem though with that mindset is, and I think you've already started to see it, so many people, the amount of people that show up to those type of shows, that buy those type of albums, it's dropped off significantly. And what you're seeing is rock itself is going through a transitional phase. I don't know what that transitional phase is. It seems like it's starting to incorporate elements of the old, like your Black Sabbaths or your, having a dirtier kind of sound to it, or more organic and raw sound to it. But jumping a little ahead of like hard rock, or going back to hard rock, hard rock was huge for a while, especially in the 90s and 2000s. And then what you saw was, around 2009, 2010, you started seeing what, and I'm going to steal this phrase from a friend of mine, what you would call Lion King rock, which is the rock that has a lot of the clapping in it, the whole gang vocals of going, whoa, your bands like that, like your, who does that fucking, like your Cage the Elephants and your...
Like Mumford & Sons?
Kind of like Mumford & Sons.
Alternative, like the new alternative.
That is what rock, that's what the identity of rock became. People were now identifying that as the successful formula. And it still is successful right now.
Turn on the local radio station.
Exactly. But the thing is, so like all the people that were playing hard rock and thinking, oh, this is what you do to be successful, they were just like the glam guys that got left behind. And this is the new thing that has transitioned. So people are doing this now. And now people are starting to see a dip in numbers as far as this stuff is concerned, because it's really accessible and it has a little bit of the angst that rock used to have, but a lot of these kids are starting to go, well, I don't want this shit. I want something to have a little more energy to it. So now you're starting to see people transition from the Lion King rock into whatever it is, whatever it's going to be, in the next 5 or 10 years now. And I don't know what that's going to be. I think it might be something that incorporates retro type of elements, because that's what it sounds like. There's some retro elements in the Lion King rock that you have right now on the radio, and I really think it's just going to be pushed even further. We're going to start repeating things that happened in like the 70s or the 80s.
Yeah, I feel like one word that comes to mind is fuzz.
Fuzz for sure. Fuzz, like stonery type of rock riffs or stuff like that, I think is what's going to start popping up again, which is cool because it pushes the genre in a different direction. It brings to light bands that have been making good music for a while. The only thing is, I hope that people don't go, oh shit, yeah, okay, this is our formula now. Let's just milk the fuck out of this thing. And they don't actually continue to push it further. Because if we're not careful, it's going to, the genre of rock is going to die completely.
Well, so maybe, if we're looking at it like a linear perspective, maybe that you've got whatever's the mainstream, then you've got all your, I hate talking about fucking genres, but you've got all these offshoots of what's not popular. That's like right now, I feel like the metal community, world, whatever the hell you want to call it, has taken huge leaps with, bands like BT Bam, like Periphery, like Animals as Leaders, the whole prog, even gent kind of thing.
For all the steps forward we've made with those bands, we then have our Chelsea Grins.
I know, but what I'm saying is that
bands like that.
But I'm saying that it's going underneath or to the side, or running parallel with this mainstream stuff.
Yeah.
And the mainstream, what they do is maybe it grabs from the genres that are progressing to try to take it. So I feel like it's constantly kind of moving forward. So hopefully that when one gets stagnant, I feel like the other one that's not on the radar, that doesn't have the formula's not been figured out, it keeps moving, and they can grab from those elements. So I feel like a lot of metal bands right now, I feel like that's why, a lot of them sound really, really good. And I think that's because they've got, they're taking elements of BT Bam, of Animals as Leaders, of Protest a Hero, of even Safety Fire, Intervals, and you put on some of these bands, and it's just like, what the hell are they doing? And it's like normal now,
or like a Chon even.
Exactly.
It's really interesting because that might also be the future. It's just these bands that are like very left center are going to start becoming the ones that are pushing things forward.
Yeah.
I've never seen, at least in my lifetime, the amount of support and the diehard fans that show up to these progressive bands. I mean, I've seen BT Bam play to a fucking packed house, which blows my fucking mind that people would be that devoted to music that is that off the wall. And then you even have a band that is more mainstream but still has those progressive elements. A band like Coheed and Cambria. That band is fucking huge. Yep. Those guys make a lot. They make a good amount of money. They're able to live as musicians, which is really hard to do nowadays. But they're playing music too that pushes boundaries. It's genre-less, if you will.
Yay!
So I think the future is bright. I'm interested to see what's going to happen, but I do feel that hard rock has become the new hair metal. It's something that is stagnant. There's no growth in it at all. There's no creativity in it. It's, you have your formula. You put song out, hope it makes money. That's it.
It's on the way out. Thank God.
Yep. All right, so let's move into some news here.
Did you notice Corey's inflection of his voice?
Oh, yeah. Working on the radio tone of voice.
So real quick, you guys may have seen Corey Taylor in the news.
Corey Taylor's always in the news.
He's always in the news. Well, he actually responded. Glenn Benton is the vocalist name from Deicide.
I've seen Deicide play once
before.
Cool. Yeah.
Well, he threw out some, I would call it almost, maybe if they weren't known for, being, they're not exactly PC, Deicide.
Well, when a guy carves an inverted cross into his forehead, I don't really think you can expect anything
I guess
less.
I guess his slurs are not going to really set the band back. I'm sure that. Anyways, so Corey came out and said that.
This is Corey Taylor, not me.
Yes.
Fuck Glenn!
Yeah, there's not
Disclaimer,
enough.
our band Camori will never be playing with Deicide now.
There's not enough fucks in this statement for it to be you, Corey. So Corey Taylor, just comes out and does a little damage control, saying that he's not exactly sure why the Deicide vocalist is upset at him and told him to blow him and such. And the reason why I wanted to bring this up is because Corey, he kind of talks about something that I've never heard him talk about before. And he says, I believe that the thing is that Deicide he's upset because Slipknot didn't take them to go out on tour with them, right? And so Corey's like, I don't know. I haven't talked to the guy in 10 years, haven't seen him in longer. He's like, I don't know why he's upset with me. And then right here, we take out the bands who submit for us, man. It's just that simple. And that was the part that I really took away from this. Like, it doesn't really have anything to do with the comments that were made, but it's just that, Slipknot has they're so big, they're this entity that bands will submit their resume to go open for them, and it's like we take out bands that submit for us. And on one hand, I think that's really cool to hear that it's not like, I would always feel like the label would I'm sure they have something to do with it, I think. Are they on Roadrunner?
Yeah, they're Roadrunner.
They want probably Roadrunner bands to be on them with them. But also, I think it's kind of cool that, I feel like that Slipknot's probably that type of band that, if you play your cards right, if you have enough success, we'll take a shot on you. I'm not the biggest fan of them, but that they took Mice and Men out.
Well, what's funny, too, is, and I have a feeling Glenn left this out intentionally, what usually happens is, at least from my understanding of how the business works, you can submit to a label or a band saying, hey, we want to come out on tour with you guys, and they will review what you bring to the table as far as how many people you bring out to shows.
Right.
Is your music good? Though sometimes that's not always the case, but oftentimes, do you know somebody in the business that can vouch for you? I think the biggest thing, and probably one of the biggest reasons why Deicide has never played with Slipknot, is they probably couldn't afford the amount of money that is required to play on a bill like that.
Right.
Because those big bands, charge a good chunk of change just for you to get yourself on that stage. Mm-hmm. Some bands, it costs them I don't even fucking know, $3,000, something crazy like that, just to be on a tour with somebody.
Oh, Megadeth would charge. You can go open for Megadeth. They'll charge you $10,000 a show, though.
Exactly. So, and what probably ended up happening was the guy who represents Deicide was probably like, well, shit, we don't have that much fucking money to play with you guys, so. And just left it alone, and there was probably a lack of communication on their part. But
that's what he goes into talking. He's like, if you talk to somebody, it wasn't me, and they didn't, blah 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 blah.
Right,
so,
probably a lot of middlemen in there that kind of handled that stuff. But I agree with you. I think it is kind of cool that some of these guys still have the door open, even though there might be some strings attached to that.
Well, we don't. This is something that's not talked about though, ever.
No,
really. I mean, maybe to buy on, that's something that only reason I've experienced with it is because my old band, we would email Live Nation and try to get on, and they'd be like, oh, well, you can buy on for this band, and we'd be like, no, we can't do that.
Yeah.
So but I feel like the average reader, the average fan, probably doesn't know how this
local musician probably
exactly.
doesn't know.
I think that's something that would be, if somebody had some insight on that'd be really cool. How bands take other ones out. How do they take them out on tour? And I bet I can probably Google if somebody's probably already fucking answered that.
Well, maybe, but
just to hear it come from Corey, I don't know. I thought it was pretty interesting. And what we were talking about before was tying this into kind of like show swapping.
Yeah.
I'm sure Glenn is he's a little butthurt at Corey Taylor for not essentially taking him on the show.
Just a tiny bit.
Think about how many times I can't get on Facebook without seeing some fucking local musician bitching about how other bands don't take them out or don't support them. I support you and all this, and it's like a what have you done for me lately kind of thing. And so is he experiencing, is this the same? Does it not go away?
Maybe.
Is it not does it happen on the local level, and then you can be here Corey Taylor is in the most, successful, arguably the most successful metal band of all time, and he's still got people that get their feelings hurt because they won't take him out on a show. I mean, I can think of local bands right around here in Charlotte that expect that kind of treatment.
So. Yeah, well, and I think there's a couple of things there. I think, one, the information is not out there. It's not as readily accessible as it should be, especially if you're trying to be a musician, be a touring musician or a professional musician. A lot of that information is really hard to find. I don't really know why the music industry is so hush-hush about the specifics that are involved with becoming a professional band, but they are, and you only learn that shit if you're in the know. And I can tell you right now, having some experience working in the music industry for about 2 years now, even just at the level I've worked at it, just as like essentially a stagehand working with the band and setting up equipment.
He's a roadie.
I'm essentially a roadie for a fucking venue. But
okay, I do it too.
But, that information is not out there for people.
Right.
So it makes it a lot more difficult for them to kind of have the tools so that they don't walk around being butthurt. So they don't walk around going, oh, well, you fucked me over, or you didn't do this for me, or I jerked you off, you're supposed to jerk me off, I get it, this is business, and a lot of times that's how business works. It's, I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine. However, I don't know. I don't really know how you get rid of this butthurt mentality. I think that, one, it was cool that Corey Taylor put that information out there and said, hey, look, if you want to try to buy onto our shows, you can do that. Again, you are having to buy on, so it's hard to do that.
Well, no, he's saying we take out the bands who submit for it. He's saying,
they take out
we'll
bands,
do it,
you have to
but
buy onto those.
You have to go through
their screening process, essentially. So, yeah, I think it's cool that he did that. As far as from a local level, what does that do? I think what it does is it just gives people a little more information, and it says to them, all right, look, if you want to get on these huge shows, sending an email saying, oh, well, we bring this many people out to our shows, and we do this and we do that, might not necessarily make a difference as far as getting you on a big national show.
So do you think, back to the local thing, show swapping, yay or nay?
I think show swapping is a really cool thing. However, there are a lot of bands locally, and I'm sure this happens too from a professional level, but a lot of times in local scenes, everyone walks around, ass-kissing one another. And they're too afraid to actually go out there and say shit that they should say.
No, man. I've been around a little while. I don't think I've ever had anybody ass-kiss to me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you seem upset at the ass-kissing. I would actually enjoy if somebody would come up and kiss Camori's ass a little bit.
Well, you know what? I personally...
When was the last time somebody was ass kissing you, Corey?
I'm not going to name any names. I'll get in trouble. We'll never play another show again.
It's okay.
No, but seriously though, instead of ass kissing, I feel like what should happen is people should be more upfront with one another as to what they like about each other's bands, what they don't like about each other's bands, and that's the way that you build a scene that is progressing and thriving.
Those are like buzzwords, man. Build a scene killer.
Yeah, I know.
Do you really know how to build a scene?
I don't know how to build a scene.
I'm gonna have to ask.
But I feel like that's a step in the right direction. Being upfront and honest with people.
So all joking aside, you're talking about being real with the band. If you don't like a band, then why should I do this? Why should I come out and support a band if I don't like them?
Well, not even that, because there are going to be some bands that are going to have redeemable qualities about them, and they sometimes need to have those redeemable qualities touched upon and focused on. You need to focus on them. They need to be celebrated. So you don't need to walk around saying, oh, your band fucking sucks. I hate your band sucks. That's not going to help anybody. It's not going to help you, it's not going to help them. Instead, what you say is, look, I think you guys have some potential here, here, and here. I'm not really a fan of what you guys are doing here, here, and here. So maybe you guys could focus on that. They might tell you, oh, well, take your opinion and go shove it up your ass. But at least you're trying to better them as musicians by giving them constructive criticism. And the thing is if they can't take constructive criticism, they're never going to become professional musicians, period, end of story.
Right. Can't take it from a crappy local band
So that brings it back around to this type of information right here that was put out there by Corey Taylor saying, yeah, you can get onto our shows, you just got to send information to us and everything, and essentially you can buy on, or we will take people out, gives them some more information so that they can potentially become professional musicians if they choose to. And from a local level, by being upfront and honest with people, that too will make people better musicians, will make it so it's easier for people to become professional musicians.
But not being a total dick.
But not being a complete dick, because, I mean, you're never going to be successful if you are a complete fucking dick from a business perspective.
So I've heard the phrase like promoting mediocrity thrown around.
Yeah.
I think I've heard you say it too. And
yeah,
this would be a way to support that dreaded word. I'm going to whisper the scene. I'm scared of that word.
Yeah.
Without breaking everybody down.
Exactly.
So most people are probably thinking that they're doing a good thing when they're essentially promoting mediocrity.
Exactly.
Right? And I think I would much rather have somebody come up and tell me that,
hey, that's not that great, but you know what? I saw some great things, or I heard some great things you were doing at this section of the song. Or I liked some parts of the song, but I didn't like other parts of it. Then you could kind of, it takes you off your high horse and makes you think for a second, well, maybe I could do something better.
Yeah, because I feel like every band, every artist, every musician, whether it's, I guess everybody starts out on a small level. You think that your shit don't stink. Man, I've thought that I've put out an album and I just don't understand, it's the problems as everybody else. I don't know why they don't like this stuff. I don't know why they're not just like totally crazy about what I created, what I paid money to have professionally record. I just expected it, people to love it, and I feel like that's a lot of mentality that a lot of amateur artists, not just musicians, have with their stuff. It's they take that step out of and actually create something, and they put their heart and their soul into it. They put their pocketbooks into it. They put their lifestyle kind of on the line to do this, and when they're not getting the immediate response they want, the last place they want to look is them and their art and what they did.
Yeah. Because maybe what you're doing isn't that good.
And they're scared.
Maybe
because they're scared to think of all, what they put their life into just doesn't measure up, not even close.
You know what? Maybe that is the case with Deicide from Slipknot's perspective. Maybe they just don't feel that they are bringing to the table what they feel would work for them.
They're not. They wouldn't. Dude, they can't even sell out Tremont.
They can't. And, and look,
they're going to play PNC.
We're not going to, and again, not to bash Deicide or anything like that, because, they have done some big things in the metal world. But, yeah, let's be realistic. They're not able to bring that kind of crowd out, and they don't have the kind of dedicated fan base that is going to go and listen to. They're not going to go and pay $45 to go listen to Deicide play with Slipknot.
No, if they ever played a show with Slipknot, it would be like a mayhem. Slipknot's headlining Deicide.
Exactly.
In the parking lot,
Exactly.
It's not a knock against them. It's just look at the reach, man. You got Slipknot, this Metallica essentially of our.
And again, this goes back into what we're talking about as far as looking at yourself or listening to the constructive criticism of others and looking at yourself and saying, well, you know what? I'm here right now and I want to be over there. What do I have to do and what do I have to change to get to that point?
Because that's the only thing you can control is what the hell you're putting into the equation.
And you know what? Deicide is probably one of those bands that doesn't want to do that. And that's fine. If they don't want to do that and they want to stay where they are and cater to the fan base that they have created, there's nothing wrong with that. That's perfectly fine. Just like any local musician playing music, if they have a sound that they like and they're okay where they are right now, that's fine. Stick with what you do and stick with what you know, and you'll continue to play what you're playing and the shows you're playing and the places you're playing at. However, a lot of these guys go into this thing with the mentality of, I want to be the shit, I want to be the next best thing. You want to be the next best thing, you want to be the shit. When you have to recognize when you're putting things out that's not going to get you to that level. So, and again, what we're saying too is subjective. Music is subjective.
Yeah.
One person's masterpiece is another piece of shit and vice versa.
Yeah.
So, However, I feel like if we're more open and we communicate more to these people about, hey, I like this, I didn't like that. Like if we're playing with a band, like I've been honest with people before if they played with us and they said, hey, what'd you think of that set? Oh, you know what? I liked you guys, but I didn't feel like you were as strong as the last time I played with you guys. The last time I saw you guys, I feel like vocals were weak, a little weak here or whatever, And then the way I've said it to them, they don't get taken aback and go, what the fuck, asshole? Fuck you. I'm just like, no, look, I didn't really like what you guys did tonight, or it seemed like you guys had an off night. I would just focus on these parts, and then you guys would be fucking tight as shit. Mm-hmm. And that's gonna make somebody go, oh, thank you.
Right.
And it's gonna make them go and work on their craft and get better. So, anyway, I feel like we kind of got a little ranty on that, but we're gonna take a really quick break here, and we're gonna come back with our final segment of the show, which is going to be NAMM, that subgenre. Hey guys, it's Camori. Listen, if you want to check out more podcasts, more videos focusing on music, be sure to go onto our YouTube channel, The Breakdown Channel. You can also check out our website, thebreakdownchannel.com, and look for The Breakdown Channel on SoundCloud. That's where you'll be able to check out most of our podcasts. Thank you again, guys, for the support. We hope you guys will check out more of our content.
All right, so we've named this NAMM, that subgenre. And the whole idea with this is how it's going to work is I'm going to have my trusty Wikipedia metal subgenre page up, which lists about 50 subgenres of heavy metal, ranging from Teutonic thrash metal all the way to funk metal. So what I'm going to do is, because I believe that most of these genres are just complete bullshit, and I hate talking about genres, even though I find that it is pretty necessary. I want to see it, if I can stump the mighty Corey Camori, and I'm going to read off a random genre, and he's going to describe it, and then we're going to see if he can even come close, and maybe even name some bands. So here we go. I'm gonna lob him one real quick. All right, Corey, first one we want to do, blackened death metal.
Okay.
Blackened death metal.
So I guess for me, blackened death metal would be death metal that has elements of black metal in it. So you would have the ferocity of black metal and the blast beats that would be present in black metal, which blast beats are also prominent in death metal, but the type of blast beats that would be the type of rhythmic blast beats that would be present in black metal would be popping up in these particular songs. You would have the raw quality of black metal mixed with the really heavy yet slightly progressive elements of death metal. And death metal itself has elements of thrash metal, and it's fast, and so they all kind of flip-flop on top of each other. So for me, blackened death metal would be what you would associate with death metal: heavy, fast, and then the blackened elements would be the blast beats, the raw sounding guitars, the lyrical content. Let's just face it, lyrical content is usually focused on Satan or the occult, and so on and so forth. So that would be my brief definition of blackened death metal. And as far as a band would be concerned, I would throw out a band like Behemoth. Would be like one band, I would say.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is a great example of using context clues and using the question to answer the question. Blackened death metal. Corey, you came pretty damn close, man. And Behemoth is one of the 5 bands that they have listed. Let's check out the other 4. We've got, I might lose my street cred here with some of our heavy listeners.
No. Oh, no.
Let's see if it'll give me a pronunciation. Belphegor?
Yeah, Belphegor.
All right. Which is a demon.
Belphegor's from...
We've got...
I can't remember.
Is it Ocker? Cock? Progressive blackened death. I feel like that's a play on Ackerfeld.
Sure.
And then Sacramentum. All right, blackened death metal. Okay. We'll do one more. But you guys get the gist. Okay, all right, Corey, what is unblack metal?
Unblack metal?
Unblack metal.
Fuck, now you're gonna stump me.
Pull-
I have never heard of this before. Unblack metal.
Again,
So this is like metal that is not black metal?
Okay. Can you be a little more Pacific like the ocean?
Unblack metal. So this sounds similar to what I guess would be considered like post-rock. So like, okay, so I'm gonna go out on a limb here. Post-rock is it's rock music that has a very atmospheric vibe to it. So it incorporates the elements of rock music, yet has elements of what you associate with atmospheric death metal. So atmospheric guitars, distorted guitars, the shift between clean and harsh vocals. So I'm gonna say unblack metal would be kind of moving in the same direction, where it'd be atmospheric music that has the basic, I guess the basic format of of metal, harsh vocals, atmospheric guitars. That's all I got. I have no fucking.
Man, that was fun watching you just bullshit.
Blow a gasket. I'm pulling shit out of my ass.
I'm gonna have to put a time limit. Thank you
God.
for that. All right. So according to Wikipedia, you were wrong, by the way.
Oh wow.
Think about it. All right. So black metal. As a teacher, I'm gonna try to scaffold. All right. So black metal. What was the topic that they talked about in black metal? You said it earlier.
Satan.
All
Oh,
right,
so it's
what's-
are you fucking kidding me?
So what was unblack?
So it's stuff that's not about Satan?
Which would be about.
So fuck you. So it's like Christian metal?
Yeah, unblack is sometimes called Christian black metal.
What?
It's stylistically black metal, but whose artists promote Christianity in their lyrics.
Unblack.
And imagery.
Are you fucking serious?
I swear.
So this is like
It is also
Jesus
suggested
metal, but with the elements of black metal, but they're not.
Yeah, Christianity contradicts.
I
black
went
metal
way
stuff.
too in depth with that.
It's funny. So it's actually said. Let's see. The Australian-born Horde brought the concept and the term "holy unblack metal"
What the fuck?
to media attention.
Are you
The
serious?
Norwegian band Antester. But they shifted towards.
Why don't they call it like white metal or
here we go.
shiny metal?
Other examples of unblack metal bands include Crimson Moonlight, Admonish, and Frost Harder. That looks very
Frost Harder.
I'm gonna guess that's Scandinavian.
I was like, it's
Norwegian. Yeah.
How do you spell that? Oh, okay. I was gonna say I'm thinking like Frost Harder, like thrust harder. I'm like, what the fuck?
No. So
this is a Norwegian.
When we get tired of
black metal dick band or something.
when we get tired of Camori and you guys get done with Territorn, we can start our unblack metal band.
Sure.
We'll be the first one out of Charlotte.
I'll start researching some of those topics.
Well,
all
cool,
right.
man.
Well, that was our first episode. Episode 1.
That's right.
And now, since we've gotten episode 1 done, we'll be moving on to episode 2 here soon. So be on the lookout for that. Once we reach episode 2, I think it's official that this is a real thing, right? Or do they say it's like episode 10 is when it becomes like a real thing and you can't stop?
I say it's a real thing now.
Fuck it, it's a real thing right now. So, with that said, guys, thank you so much for tuning in and listening to us talk about all these different topics here on music and metal from the local and national, regional level, all that good shit. This has been Don't Hassle Me, I'm Local, street level music discussion. Thank you guys again for tuning in. I'm Corey Camori.
I'm John Conway.
We'll see you guys next time.